So, how you guys doing today? I wanted to have a conversation with you guys about homeless people. Haha. Now, um, depending on where you guys are, you might sometimes have to deal with homeless people, especially if you're in a big city. Homeless people are a huge amount of your life, right? Especially if you catch public transportation. Even if you go to Starbucks just to get a coffee, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna see a homeless person there. Sometimes they're gonna be, a lot of times they're gonna be like normal guys, sitting there. They might ask for change. They may be smelly. They may have dirty clothes. 9 times out of 10, they're probably, well, you know what? Maybe not even 9 times. Maybe 7, 8 times out of 10. They're like, normal people who are just happen to be homeless. Okay, and they're in bad circumstances, and now they're unhoused. Now, the other 2 to 3% of the time, and possibly even more depending on where you are. Like I'm in San Francisco Bay Area, so there's a lot of homeless people, especially in San Francisco, who have mental issues. And not like talking to yourself kind of quietly, mental issues. I mean, like screaming loudly, being very aggressive. And if you're kind of a bigger guy like me, um, it's still kind of an issue, but it's less so. If you're like a smaller woman, right, or even a smaller guy, that becomes a huge factor, and that becomes something that can be really scary. Now, we can get into what caused the influx of homeless people. You look at Ronald Reagan basically clearing out all of the fucking government sponsored healthcare facilities that housed a lot of the mentally handicapped people, people with schizophrenia, people who were mentally disabled. Like, I don't know if is it political to say mentally retarded or no, it's developmentally disabled, whatever. That's where they would house those individuals. And after they were released, a lot of the times the families didn't take them back in, right? And so that's where you started to first see this, group of unhoused, mentally unwell, people. Another influx is when you saw wars, right? You would have the Vietnam War. You see a lot of veterans who are mentally broken because of war, really unable to keep a job, unable to live in society, and now they're forced onto the streets. And then there are a lot of people who, in general, aren't, mentally able to take care of themselves, and so they're forced out onto the streets into homelessness. And you see this, and it's very tragic. And there needs to be a sort of safety net that the government, can do to catch it. People talk about mental health. People talk about or mental health care, right? Like getting these people to in front of doctors, getting them housing, that kind of thing. But but uh, um, by the time they're in your face screaming, you know, the problem is already out of the hands of the government, right? But what seems to, I guess, go over the heads of some people, especially a lot of the more wealthy people who tend to be a little more liberal, uh, is that these people can be dangerous, right? Like not they're not 100% dangerous, but a lot of the times they can be very dangerous. Okay, and especially if you're a smaller female or you're a smaller guy, you run into a homeless person, and that could be your last run in with anybody. Depending on the situation where you are. Now, why do I bring all this up? Well, there was an altercation that happened on a subway in New York. Now, from what I understand, and we're gonna go over some videos. I'm gonna read a couple articles. Um, from what I understand, a homeless man who was a Michael Jackson impersonator walked onto a subway, and was very aggressive, very loud, demanded food, demanded water, said he didn't care, he wanted to go to jail. Now, if these were things that he was just expressing, I could see that, right? He threw his jacket onto the ground, and as a result of that, 3 passengers, one of them being a former Marine, the former Marine put him in a chokehold, and the other 2 passengers restrained his hands. Now, I haven't seen the video yet, but that's something that we're going to go over. And they held him for 15 minutes until authorities arrived in a chokehold. Now, that chokehold killed him. He was pronounced dead by paramedics. Or he was pronounced dead at the hospital. Again, we'll get into the details of the video. But the thing about me is I can see both scenarios, right? I can see a scenario where this homeless guy was getting onto the subway, being very aggressive, being very threatening, and he had to be restrained. Now, 15 minutes is a little excessive when, you know, you put somebody in a proper chokehold for, you know, I think it's something like 10 seconds or something like that, and they'll fucking pass out. But I do want to say a proper chokehold can be hard to get off if, you know, the person is, you know, fighting for their life. So it's not like it's not like he was able to get like maybe a good chokehold on there. So basically I want to watch a couple of things. Okay, so I wanted to watch the video of what happened. I wanted to watch a reaction to the video of what happened by one of the Young Turks. I forget her name, but we're going to watch her video. It kind of sparked a funny sort of reaction to that. And I want to watch a couple videos of like a proper like chokehold. Well, one video, maybe 2. So yeah, let's get started. So viewer discretion advised, you guys. All right, here's the video.
Heroism or vigilantism? The video shows 3 strap hangers subduing the 30-year-old man after witness Juan Alberto Vasquez says he got on the northbound F train and began acting aggressively, threatening riders. Law enforcement sources with knowledge of the case confirm his account, saying according to a witness, the man began shouting, quote, "I want food. I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm ready to go back to jail, and I'll hurt anyone on this train."
The man got on the
I'll hurt anyone on this train
subway car and began to say a somewhat aggressive speech, saying that he was hungry, he was thirsty, and he didn't care about anything. He didn't care about going to jail, that he didn't care that he gets a big life sentence, and it doesn't matter if he died.
Vasquez says he was scared and believes others on the train were too. That's when he says a 24-year-old rider came up behind the man and put him in a chokehold, holding him there on the ground. 2 other men standing over them also helped subdue the man.
Por supuesto, o sea, sí hubo...
Was there anybody? It's hard to see. No, I think those are the 3. He's just on the ground.
Men standing over them also helped subdue the man.
Por supuesto, o sea, sí hubo...
If there was fear, the people who were bluish or who were there, where he separated everything, moved from their place. I stayed sitting in my place because it was a little further away. But obviously those moments, well, one thinks fear, one thinks he may be armed.
He says that chokehold lasted about 15 minutes, even with the train stopped at one point at the Broadway Lafayette station and the doors open.
Se fue la mayoría de la gente, sí.
Well, most of the people left. If they open the door, the train separates and it leaves. Almost all the people just stayed. The ones who were there on the floor fighting, a couple who was standing in front of them stayed.
Vasquez says no one thought the man would die, even after he went limp. EMS arrived and performed CPR, but he could not be revived.
No, en ningún momento, no, nadie...
I think no one thought that he was in a risky situation because he was defending himself all the time. All the time he moved. He tried to remove his arm, and then when they had it on his side, he kept kicking. So he thought that he's defending himself.
The 24-year-old who delivered the chokehold was questioned and released by police. He is not facing any charges at this point. The medical examiner...
At this point, he's facing manslaughter charges. We have yet to know if the other 2 gentlemen will be charged as well. I guess, I don't know if I should call them gentlemen.
...has yet to determine a cause of death. Former NYPD Chief of Department Terry Monahan.
The way the detectives have to look at this case is what would a reasonable person do and what would a reasonable person be expected to do.
Attorney Alvin Bragg today again promised a thorough investigation into the chokehold death of Jordan Neely. Protests last night demanding charges against retired Marine Daniel Penny led to 10 arrests. Organizers are promising more protests. Penny claims he and others on the train felt threatened and did not intend to harm Neely. Eyewitness News reporter Josh Einiger is live in Times Square.
Liz, one of those protests was set for this afternoon.
Yeah, this looks rough. They got him looking straight at the camera. He's got a good chokehold, but the dude, it seems like he's fighting the whole time.
Eyewitness News reporter Josh Einiger is live in Times Square.
Liz, one of those protests was set for this afternoon here in Times Square, but it did not actually materialize. Meanwhile, today the Manhattan DA said silence from his office should not be interpreted as inaction.
As protests continue to swirl over the choking death of Jordan Neely on an F train last Monday, protests continue to swirl.
You see how they're doing everything but grabbing him by the neck. This dude's grabbing him by the the chest. Like, man.
As protests continue to swirl over the choking death of Jordan Neely on an F train last Monday, today Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg made his first public comments about Daniel Penny, the former Marine who subdued Neely.
Oh, it's not a good
DA
look.
vowing his office will follow the facts.
I think sometimes people peer into the silence and look at that as if, well, the office isn't doing anything or it's not important. It's quite the contrary.
A grand jury is said to be investigating Penny and might indict him in the case. Neely, who had a documented history of mental health issues and more than 40 arrests, had been acting erratically on the train when Penny placed him in a chokehold that knocked him unconscious. He would never wake up.
See, that's the thing. 42 arrests. Right, so there's a good chance that this guy was being very erratic, being very aggressive on the subway. But the question is that alone reason enough to detain him? Right? You know, it's, I guess basically a citizen's arrest, right? Is that enough alone a reason to citizens arrest him, right? Or try to detain him? Because that's what it really all comes down to. If he was right in putting him in a chokehold, right, then he's basically in the clear because he died struggling against that. But also in the same respect, like, this is not a good look. 3 dudes choking this guy out, and that's all we see on video. We don't have any video of him going crazy.
On Jordan Neely's head. And Daniel Penny came up and told me to stop. And he got over him and said, stop. If he didn't have the intention of killing Jordan Neely, I believe that at the least he did not have consideration for his life because he was poor, homeless, and black.
Neely's death came...
Damn. You know what? So this was an eyewitness, though.
Penny came up and told me to stop. And he got over him and said, stop. If he didn't have the intention of killing Jordan Neely, I believe that at the least he did not have consideration for his life because he was poor, homeless, and black.
Neely.
That is a very good point. There was no consideration for the guy's life. Because I believe he was definitely not a threat. After the first 10 minutes in the chokehold.
Neely's death came as the mayor has been trying to address mental illness in the transit system, even authorizing police to involuntarily commit people who appear to be a danger to themselves or others. Sources say Neely was on an unofficial list of the top 50 most endangered homeless in the subway, but still he lacked the services that might have intervened.
So they knew about him. He was on an unofficial top 50 list of fucking most dangerous or most endangered people in the subway. Excuse me. Also, wait, dangerous or endangered? Did I hear that wrong?
Themselves or others. Sources say Neely was on an unofficial list of the top 50 most endangered homeless in the subway, but
So it's most in danger, not dangerous. Okay. So they knew that he needed help. Man, it's really hard not to say this was like the city's fault almost. If you know who these guys are, you got to get them help. Maybe they could have gone easier with the hold, but like think about it like this, and this is a thing that I was kind of gonna bring up. Like, what if you put a guy in a chokehold? What's better? You put a guy in a chokehold for like 10 minutes, and then you let him off, and then he sort of gets back up, and then you start fucking firing him on his fucking face, like you just start beating his fucking face until he stops moving. Like, cause this is fight mode. Once you're down here, once you're fucking on the ground with homie like this is a fucking life or death situation. Straight the fuck up. Okay? So this is fight or flight mode. All right? If you let him out of that fucking chokehold and he's not incapacitated, then he's going to be coming after you hard. So the first thing you would have to do is let him off and then wait for him to start moving. And if he does, you just start fucking firing off on his face. Like, I don't see any other way other than keeping him in sort of a hold like that.
Voluntarily commit people who appear to be a danger to themselves or others. Sources say Neely was on an unofficial list of the top 50 most endangered homeless in the subway, but still he lacked the services that might have intervened before he crossed paths with Daniel Penny.
I've been in the subway system talking to young black men who are the majority of those who are homeless and dealing with severe mental illnesses, trying to get them off the system in the care that they deserve. I don't want us to be energized when we have a death and not energized when there's conditions that's creating the deaths that are at our hand.
Today, the White House released a statement.
See, that's the thing. They didn't care when he was screaming and threatening people on the subway who were just trying to get to where they were trying to go. And he shouldn't have died at all. But, there should be places for these people, in terms of mental health. Seems like it'd be a lot easier and safer. I bet one of them would fucking drop a knee right on the fucking neck, though. I bet he would get George Floyded so fast with these fucking amateurs. I don't know, man.
Ben Shapiro responding to a video of Emma talking.
So this is Emma. I don't think has ever been around a homeless person ever.
About the killing of Jordan Neely. It's unclear right now. They're starting to look into what charges they're going to pursue of the killer. His name escapes me at the moment.
Daniel Penny.
This 22-year-old former Marine. It's pretty hard for me to see how this is not manslaughter charge without, getting too technical about the thing. I mean, it's quite clear the guy did kill him. And as far as we know, from the testimony that we've heard publicly anyways by the person who took the video, that that Jordan Neely did not physically assault anyone in that subway.
Didn't he say, I want to assault you, or I'll hurt anybody in here? I think that's assault. Battery is when you physically attack somebody. Assault is when you threaten to.
And that to the extent that he was aggressive and yelling in the subway, the biggest thing he did that inspired this guy coming up behind him and putting him in a lethal chokehold. It's unclear whether or not this Marine was trained to do a chokehold like that. I imagine they are.
But we know that chokeholds in much less time have killed people.
Well, they're not allowed to be used by the police department anymore because...
Yeah, but I mean, he's not a cop. So it's not his job to fucking take this guy down which is, you know, that could be a point to your side. But in the same respect, there was nobody there to settle things down, right? Sure, did he go overboard? 100%. But should he have just sat there and let the dude fucking scream or possibly hit somebody? Like, you know, homeless people are not are not non-violent. Like, that's what kind of really bothers me, is like dudes like this who probably have never experienced had any experiences with homeless people or scary experiences with homeless people, will sit there and say, you know, like, you guys should have just sat back and just let whatever happens, right? Like, no. Okay, like, there should he have been put into a chokehold for 15 minutes? No. But should nothing at all have happened? No. Like, depending on what he was gonna do, we don't know what he was gonna do before he was fucking grabbed. Like, I don't know. I'm not really trying to defend the fucking killer on this, but, like, in the same respect, like, I can understand seeing, like, a homeless dude going fucking crazy and thinking, like, man, somebody's got to do something.
They're lethal.
Eric Garner died in 9 seconds
and came up behind him after he threw his sweatshirt on the ground angrily and put him in a chokehold. I don't think it was, I mean, who knows what's in the minds of this guy. I don't think it was his intent to kill him, but he did put him in a lethal chokehold.
Use deadly force.
Used deadly force against this guy. And, you know, once they press charges...
Severely underweight, starving on the street. There were multiple people there involved in subduing him. They could have put him face first on the ground, had his hands behind...
God, my whole thing is like, could you imagine if she... It's like, okay, all right, would you rather... If you ask, you know, Emma, you could say, hey, would you rather take this elevator with... Jordan Neely, or would you rather take the elevator with Jordan Neely's killer, Daniel Penny, or whatever? She would choose the Marine every fucking time. Every time, no question, she would choose the Marine. She wouldn't just sit in there with him fucking, cause like, all that underweight shit would go out of the window when the fucking stature, when he's there, bigger than you, strong. Sure, underweight. You're making him sound like he was super weak. We saw fucking, it was a different homeless guy, sure, but that homeless guy looked skinny too when he fucking decked that old Chinese woman.
Behind his back, there were a lot of other options if he was really trying to subdue him in this situation.
But she does have a good point. There were other options, just like Scudio said. Why didn't they just put him on his back, put his hands behind his back, and hold him there until police come?
Also, you can also just make sure that the guy doesn't assault anybody. I mean, if you have those abilities, that's also what you could do.
I mean, if Neely actually assaulted someone, this wouldn't be a story.
Without a doubt. But here is Ben Shapiro responding to Emma.
A good person to accept it. So, for example, there's a woman named Emma Vigeland. She's on the Majority Report, I guess. And a clip going viral today, talking about how if you want to feel safe on public transit, this is bourgeois. And you have to suppress those bourgeois feelings. You have to make yourself feel okay about being abused on the public transportation system.
I was hit at one point sitting on the subway by a man who was having a mental health episode. He sat next to me and he was elbowing and kind of flailing around and hit me in the face and in my body. And it was jarring, right? The idea that I would want him to be hurt in any way, I just didn't want to be near him in that moment because I understood something was going on here. But like, my fear is not the primary object of like what we should be focusing on right now. It's the fact that this person is in pain.
I swear this never happened. This could, no way. Dude, no way. No way you're sitting here. No way, no. She's not Mother Teresa. Okay, bitch, you're not sitting in here with a fucking crazy homeless person flailing, getting hit twice, and you're like, we have to think of him. Don't worry about me. No, that's bullshit. That is 3,000% bullshit. I don't believe it happened. One. Probably didn't even happen. I don't even know why I'm talking about this. I very much doubt it happened. But I remember this clip going around Twitter, and it was like so fucking annoying.
And so, like, the politics of dehumanization privileges the bourgeois kind of concern of people's like immediate discomfort in this narrow instance, as opposed to larger humanity and life. It's really freaking twisted.
Being beat up, being physically abused, is now being part of the larger spectrum of humanity. Isn't that wonderful?
Pause.
You are expecting.
Now, first off, I mean, I don't want to speak for you on this, obviously, but clearly what you're setting up there is the way that everybody's talking about we need to be able to feel safe on the subway.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the we?
Yeah.
Because if you can be summarily executed because A, you have a criminal record that nobody knows about, or B, you're having a mental episode and an emotional episode, and you're just making other people feel uncomfortable. No one was hit, as far as we know, from every public statement by anybody at this point. Even the statement by the killer, the lawyer put out, does not claim that Neely was physically assaulting anybody. He was aggressively threatening, although it's also unclear that he was actually threatening anybody. He was just acting in a way that was scary.
And that was the point I was making, which is that we as New Yorkers, the larger context was like, we've all had these kinds of interactions on the subway where someone is having a sort of episode.
But, like, your response to that instead is just like, oh, well, yeah, it's understandable if something happens. You know, just kind of let it happen. If, like, somebody was struggling, I don't know. That's what really gets me. It's like, sure, nobody stepped up to do anything in your situation, but you kind of want to punish the guys that stepped up to do something in this situation, which I don't necessarily agree with.
And I believe I gave an example of someone having an episode sitting next to me where I was physically hit briefly. And I moved away from that person. That made me uncomfortable. The context that Ben cut out there was that I don't believe that that person should be executed for what happened there.
They played it.
Don't think it's necessarily controversial.
But you guys are going even further. Nobody wants them to be executed, but the issue is you're saying not to do nothing. You're saying just sit back and let it happen. And other people are saying, well, no, there needs to be a stop to this, right? Like, you guys got super mad at Anna Kasparian when she posted that video of that one homeless dude just punching the shit out of an Asian woman out of nowhere for no reason.
You hit me, fool!
And you guys say, oh, well, you know, that guy's the victim, not really the person that got fucking hurt. It's like, are you serious? Like, at this point, this becomes ridiculous. Like, you know what? When you look at people who commit crimes, right? Like, sure, the person that fucking breaks into the house and is stealing your shit, maybe that person did come from a single-parent household. Maybe he does live in economic poverty, and he does live in a group of people who are in the same kind of economic situation as him. Sure, all of these different contributions that make up the reason why he's breaking into my house, they all exist, they are all real, they are all facts. But guess when it does not matter anymore? When that motherfucker is in my house, okay? Because then it becomes either me or him, right? And do you want me to sit back and say, well, let me pick him because X, Y, and Z? Like, no, okay? When that dude's on the subway and he's getting loud and he's getting aggressive, you don't know what the fuck he's about to do, okay? So somebody steps up to subdue him, right? Now, the situation gets out of hand and the person ends up dying. And that's fucked up. It really is. And my heart goes out to them. But the time that helped Jordan Neely was when he was on the streets and he needed help. Okay, you have a lot of his family members coming out now. You have a lot of people who are supposedly caring about him coming out now. Where were you guys when he was dressed like Michael Jackson dancing on the street? Okay, now all of a sudden that he's in the spotlight, now all of a sudden that he's, now all of a sudden you get brownie points for fucking taking up his side. Now you want to stand up and fucking and say, oh, he needed help. He needed help when he needed help. That time is past now. Okay? He was in a situation where other people felt threatened. And they acted in a way to protect themselves because he was threatening them. He was acting in a threatening way. This wasn't like a normal black dude who was just on his way to work and then everybody said, no, he was arrested 42 times. Okay? This wasn't something new to him. They knew who he was already. He was on a list in New York City of the top 50. 50. He was on a list of the top 50 in New York City, having however many millions of citizens that are in that city. All those millions of people, I should say, not just citizens. But anyway, this isn't a situation where you can, it's black and white, right? The guy's actions are understandable. Okay? It's unfortunate to say, but the guy's actions were understandable. We as a society felt Jordan Neely, right? And what we need to do now is try to stop future Jordan Neelys from happening. Okay? What we need to do is pick up our fucking big boy pants, put them on, okay? And we need to start fucking taking care of our mentally handicapped, homeless people, okay? Because it's a huge thing. We need to start taking care of this issue. And if you don't, then it's just you're just gonna have more people being scared and reacting. And then, as a result, more people, homeless and non-homeless, are gonna end up dying because of it. Unfortunately. Let's go to this Woody. Woody gets choked out.
I'm Woody's gamer tag, and I'm about to get choked out. So, before we start here, this is what you need to know. This is Ricky. Ricky is Joe Lozon's grappling coach. He helps pros. He's from University Grappling, link in the description. He's a pro. He knows what he's doing. We have an EMT upstairs in another room in case something goes wrong. Just because I'm a jackass. This is not your free card to be a jackass like me. But what he's going to do is he's going to choke me out and then ask me a question afterwards. Do you know what you're going to ask?
Yeah, I do.
All right, so here I am, getting choked out. If I'm not a bitch about this whole thing, I won't tap. Let's bring it.
You want him to respect the tap?
Nah,
okay.
I'm not gonna tap.
It doesn't matter if you tap anyway.
Okay, so I'm gonna apply a rear naked choke like you see in the UFC. Now this move is the #1 submission finished in the UFC, so we're positive that this will send him out the fastest.
I have this fear that I'm gonna pass gas and pee during the choke.
We really hope that doesn't happen. we're confident. We're confident that won't happen.
Oh man! All right, now I want to see that happen.
Put your hand up. He's out.
Yeah, he's done.
He's out. He's going.
Okay.
Bruh, that was hella fast. All right, let's do a countdown. All right.
Confident. We're confident that won't happen.
All right.
Okay.
1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi.
He's out.
You could say 6.5, even be generous and say 7 seconds, right? The guy held him for 15, and but he didn't have a good grip on him. So whether this could be murder or not, it could be. He could be charged for manslaughter easily.
No. He's out. He's going.
Okay. I got him. What's your gamer tag or ID?
It's Woody's gamer tag. I forgot what we were doing.
Okay, we're here. We just finished with the choke out. there's probably going to be a small amount of memory loss here, but you've seen it firsthand.
Yeah. I totally forgot where I was and everything, and then it's coming back to me now. All right, so that's what a choke out is like. It kind of tingled. Yeah,
I feel like you just slept for a couple hours.
No, it doesn't feel like that to me.
Did you have a dream?
All right, do it again.
Once is good.
All right, that was okay. See, couple of seconds, and it was done.